Hello. Good good evening to you all. And you're welcome to some church be singing. Yeah. Yeah, guys, you have to pardon the background noise. The church in my area that sings every evening. I hope you guys can see my screen and you pardon me for the noise in my background. Let's share the link with our colleagues and then invite more people to join so that we can start. Currently, we have 6 people who can share the link for others to also join. If we reach about 20, we can continue. All right, I think we can get started. Good evening, everyone. And yeah, once again, welcome to today's introduction to DevOps and Cloud Computing session. We will be discussing more about DevOps and what it takes to become a DevOps engineer here in Ghana and anywhere in the world. I know all people want to become DevOps engineers, but they don't know how to start or where to start from. I'm here to answer your questions for you and then guide you to become a DevOps engineer. So we'll be looking at some of the basic things that we need to know about DevOps, and then the things we need to start preparing in order to get ready for this role. All right, so let's get started. So my name is Vincent Tetteh, and then I'm a senior software and DevOps engineer. I've been doing a little of machine learning of late. That's my next career path. But trying to move to ML Ops. DevOps has always been my team. And coming from a software engineering background to becoming a DevOps engineer now really opens your eyes to see how software have been developed and how they are being deployed and managed for users to use. So let's look at what DevOps is and then move on. So someone may ask, what is DevOps and what do they do? So DevOps is just a combination of two things. We have the dev and then the ops. So initially we have the a development team, which is a software engineering team who develop the application, and then we have the ops team who are the system administrators who deploy the applications. What they do is that whenever the application is being developed, they transfer the application to the ops team to deploy, and the ops teams don't have any idea of coding. They don't know how the application is being developed. So they'll have to try to deploy it until there are issues before they get to uh, communicate back to the developers that there's this error in the code and they have to fix it. So this approach delays the time for delivery. Right. Uh, of late, businesses want to have a smooth way of deploying or delivering their application within a matter of seconds or minutes. Imagine you have a software and you have to deploy for a customer to use it. It took you about 2 or 3 months for it to just deploy the application. How do you feel about that? So that was the problem that most companies were facing, and that gave birth to DevOps. So DevOps engineers are basically people who foster this DevOps life cycle. So DevOps normally promotes collaboration by making sure that the tools involved for collaborating between software engineers and the ops teams are something centralized and communications can go on um, while the software is being developed. And we're also looking at automation, where you can automate the end-to-end delivery of the software. And if there are any improvements like fixing of bugs, uh, patches, and then updates, these things are being done consistently. So the main goal for DevOps is to make sure that software are delivered very fast and there's an ability to collaborate with other entities. Then there is higher reliability on the system. Okay. So someone who is a DevOps engineer is basically someone who has experience in dev and then ops and stands in between the ops and the development team. Now, one key aspect of DevOps is cloud computing. So of late, see that companies are moving to the cloud, and the reason is that the cost that is being incurred compared to what you do in house is very vast. And companies are moving to the cloud to save cost and then to also um, be able to scale the applications without any struggle. So cloud computing is basically you providing the services that you have in house over the internet for people to use. So we have providers like Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud who have these services in house and at a very large scale, and they are providing it over the internet for other people all over the world to use. And they are doing such that it's very scalable, it's cost efficient, and flexible and secure. So you look at having a server. So those days you can you see companies having a very big server in their offices, and they have to maintain the server. So imagine when people want to develop an application. You don't even know how much CPU or memory your application will need. You just go and buy some. You either end up buying more resources or buying less. Buy more, that means you end up having redundant resources that of no use. If you buy less to that means application will not be able to run very well. And that alone is a headache that most companies used to go through until cloud computing came into the picture. So now you don't have to have your own server in house. I think big companies like banks and investment banks some are now moving to the cloud, but most of them those days have their servers in house. Some still do, right? And as they are moving it out to the cloud. So in the cloud, you can spin up a server within a matter of seconds or minutes, and you can terminate it, you can stop it, you can create storage for it, you can also provision databases by just clicking one or two buttons in the cloud, and then you have your resources. And even if you realize that the resources you have allocated to your server is less or more, you can update the configuration for your server, and then you have your resources being optimized. And we also have networking. So the one we know mostly is having a network infra in house, and then we have network engineers sitting in house to configure our networking and all that. But for now, everything is being moved to the cloud. So we have networking in the cloud where you create a virtual a private network, and then you configure all your subnet or your IP addressing. You provision resources to those subnets or within your intranet in the cloud, and then you assign permissions to it to control who access and what resources are available over the internet. And networking has also been made very simple. That most companies don't even have to buy a lot of switches. Most have even moved to wireless where they only need one router, and then they use um, m- tools for managing users and their devices in the cloud. You can look at something like M365, which is cloud based, which is now being used to manage users, manage your devices, and you don't even need to. Once you want to go to the wireless app, you don't even need to have switches. All you need is a router and to get a static IP address, and then you're able to use um, M365 to manage your users, your devices, and everything in the cloud. So this has become a thing for us now, and then it's one of the things that DevOps engineers need to know and then have to mix up. Now let's look at who a DevOps engineer is. So a DevOps engineer is someone who come from. So we have people who come from a software engineering background and those who come from a technical background. But in the end, you have to know about software development and operations. It should be someone who understands both sides, understand what software engineers are doing, and understand what the ops side is doing, so that you can start in between and bridge the gap. So there needs to be a silo between those two things. You know, you are coming to sit in between them and become like a bridge, right? You become like a connection between the two to make sure that there is a continuous collaboration and delivery of a software product. Right? So your job is basically to bridge the gap between the dev and then the ops. And some of the responsibility of a DevOps engineer is to automate the continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines. So automation is one of the things that you do to make sure that whenever a software is being developed, once it's been pushed automatically, it gets built and tested, and it gets deployed to particular environment, and then you get to monitor it. And if there are bugs or there are any issues with it, developers are able to see those issues in real time and are able to provide fixes or patches for that. Then within a matter of minutes, they can redeploy or push that patch to the environment that they are targeting. And we also have managing cloud infrastructure. So as a DevOps engineer, you also need to manage cloud infrastructure. So you need to have experience with these cloud providers. Uh, the one is that is being mainly used is AWS, Azure, and then Google Cloud. So you have to master those those providers based on the kind of company you're working with. So most companies are Asia biased, where everything they do is Microsoft related. So they go with Asia, and then the others who are not Microsoft related who also use GCP or they use AWS. So depending on the target company, you have to master a particular cloud platform. And then the correct one that you can start with, that once you start with, you can move to other areas is mostly AWS. Right? So you can start with that, and then you have to master that. Then you're able to help provision resources in the cloud for your company or your clients. You also have monitoring systems. So if your application is running, if it's using more CPU or less CPU, if there are some errors in the code, how would you be able to see them? If the server goes down, how do you know? So we use monitoring systems or services to monitor the application and everything around it to make sure that the system is always um, running, because you have SLOs and SLAs that states how reliable your application will be. So if you don't monitor it to make sure that it's always available, you may end up having your services down and not knowing what to do. And then we also have to ensure security. So security is also one very thing that as a developer need to know. You need to know how to manage users, assign permissions to resources. You have to make sure that when you're creating password, the policies are as expected by your company policy. You have to make sure that your system are not compromised. You do patches and updates on time, all those things. So it's one of the major parts. So we see rules like DevSecOps, so development security and operation. So DevSecOps is someone who also has experience in security. Okay, so they bring all those experience together. So this someone as a kind of software engineer, they move to become, or someone started as a network engineer, move to become a software engineer, and then to a security role, then to a DevOps. So that person has experience in those three roles. So that person is qualified to become a DevSecOps engineer. So when they are proficient and infrastructure, they have in mind the software and then security as well to balance the two, to make sure that the environment is highly secure. Then here are some of the skills and experiences that you need to become a software engineer, a DevOps engineer. You need to know how to program. So programming is one of the things that you need to know. So coming from a software engineering background, programming is one of the things that you have to master and know how to create applications. You need to know how applications work into know, because you can't end up deploying something that you don't know how it works, right? You don't know how it's being created. So you need to have experience in that. So languages that you can learn uh, languages that you can learn are Python, Bash, or Java, or even C Sharp. So you can become a, if you are the Java developer or a Golang developer or a Python developer, you want to switch to DevOps, then you just need to know a little bit about networking and system administration, then you are good to go. They also need to know version control. So if you're a software engineer by default, you know more about version control. So you need to master GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. There are a lot of version controls there, but into the popular one is the GitHub. So you can use GitHub to store your code and then also create your pipelines using GitHub Actions. and you will manage users and who sees what repo and who doesn't. Right. The move to CI/CD, so continuous integration, continuous development. So how do you build your application? How do you test it? How do you make sure that it doesn't contain bugs? How do you make sure that there are no outdated libraries or dependencies? You use continuous integration tools to make sure that when the code is pushed automatically, you are able to run the code and test for all these things before you deploy application to your environment. So some of the tools you can use is you can use Jenkins or GitHub Actions for your continuous integration. For continuous delivery or deployment, you can use tools like Argo CD or Spinnaker. We have some other uh, continuous delivery tools out there that you can use. But basically, these are the ones that are common. And then cloud computing, we also have to master platforms like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. Like I mentioned earlier, you need to have experience with this platform to be able to provision your resources because if you want to, so people, there are companies who want to have their own private environment in the cloud and then they want to have their own CI/CD tools. So you have to be able to master this platform and learn how to provision these resources in a cloud based on your use cases and based on the environment you're targeting. If the application is a C sharp application or it's a Java based application, then you know what kind of resources to provision to build and then test your code and provision it or deploy it onto your environment. So these are the things you have to master or the experiences you need to have in order to become one. Now, I've told you earlier that before DevOps, we all have our traditional IT team who are mainly a network engineers and system administrators, right? So when you look at what um, those traditional IT teams have been doing when it comes to software deployment and its frequency, you see that it takes them months and weeks for them to deploy the applications. And if they are bugs, it takes a very long time to report back to developers that hey, your application contains this bug, so you have to connect to resolve the bug or create some patch to fix it. But with DevOps, it takes a day or an hour, right? And it takes weeks or weeks for you to get this done because of the automation and then the collaboration involved. You're able to make sure that everything is done properly. I look at automation. Traditionally, there's no automation. System admins don't really do much automation for deploying the application. They prefer to create some VPS, copy the package code, and then go in there into the VPS, and then they try to run the package code there. If there are errors, then they come back. But in DevOps, you have to automate all these processes. And then team collaboration. So there's no collaboration between the IT team and then the developers, right? But in DevOps, see that there's a professional collaboration where the dev team knows what is going on with the ops knows what is going on with the devs. So by the time they're done with the development of the application, the infra is also ready for it. And then feedback in the traditional IT is very slow because they have to first of all try to debug the error, make sure it's not from their end before they come out to developers to tell them that hey, we have this error, but we check everything from our side and it's not from our end. So can you please look into your code? And that could take a lot of days or months of weeks. But in DevOps, everything is fast and we provide continuous feedback through monitoring and reporting tools. People are being notified based on the errors that are being produced by the code, and they're able to read those logs or and then create patches and then push them within a matter of hours or days. Okay. So, before we talk about the DevOps lifecycle and the tools involved, I'd like to pause here for questions. If there are any questions from any of you, you can just leave the question in the chat, and then I'll answer you. So, if you have any question, you can just drop your question in the chat, and then I'll answer you before we continue. Any questions so far? All right. Yeah. I think there are no questions, but you can just drop your questions in the chat, and then I'll make time to answer them for you. So let's move on. DevOps lifecycle um, comes in stages. So you have the coding stage, the build stage, the testing of the code, the release, the deployment, then the operation, the monitoring, and then come back to planning, coding, and building and testing. Right. And at every stage, we have tools involved for us to use. For coding, normally you use Git and GitHub, Bitbucket, or GitLab. For planning, we use Jira, we use Confluence, and we also use some other tools like Trello, and other tools available. If you can hear me clearly, if you can hear me clearly, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me clearly? Hello? Okay. So Felix says he can hear me clearly. That's all right. Sam still can hear me clearly. Thanks, guys. All right. Let's continue. As I was saying, for code development, all the tools involved. So we have version controls, and then also some for planning. So Jira, for instance, is used to um, create timelines, tickets, create Jira stories for the development to use as a guide to develop the application. And Confluence is also like a place that can create your documentation of your system and then your infrastructure. Okay. So and then for version control or place to keep your code, you use GitHub to store your codes and then to also collaborate with other teams on it. Then for building your tool, if you're targeting a particular uh, project, either it's a Python project, is a Scala project, or a Java project, you have to use a particular build tool that is being used to build the application. Okay. And then for testing, we have tools for automated testing, for end-to-end testing and performance test. Right. So we have Selenium, JUnit, and some other ones that you can use to test your application. Right. And then we also have releases. So for you to create releases, you can use Jenkins, yeah, GitHub Actions, or you can even use um, CodeShip or Circle CI. There are a lot of tools available. So one thing that you need to know about DevOps is that there are a lot of tools. The tools are a lot, and you can't know all of them, but they all have one thing in common, right? If you master one, you can easily move to another one. Once you get the concepts of how DevOps works, and then how continuous integration works. If you master, let's say Jenkins, you'll be able to move to GitLab CI or GitHub Actions or Second CI or Travis CI, and you'll be fine with that. And for deployments, you can look at environments like Kubernetes, or you use EC2, AWS resources like EC2, ECS, uh, and other orchestrators that are available. If you want to go with the containerization approach, you can also leverage on Docker, right? Where you containerize and then you contribute it Docker Swarm or Kubernetes or ECS based on the environment or the cloud provider you're using. So every provider have their own tools for orchestrating or deploying your application, right? For operations, so for operations, one thing you have to know is that all the resources that have been provisioned and are being configured are automated. So continuous, when you look at a way to make sure that your resources are being provisioned and then they are being configured without any manual approach or without doing anything manual, you have to make sure that you automate them. And for the automating, use tools like Terraform for provisioning and Ansible for configuration management. So you want to SSH into the server and store some dependencies or some packages. You can use Ansible to do that. You can also use Chef to do that, right? Or you can write a Python code and combine it with Bash scripts um, to make the configuration of your infrastructure, right? Then we move to monitoring. So monitoring is a way of you making sure that what is there is running actively, and then you're able to monitor the heartbeat of the application, collect logs, and all that. And one that I use currently is Datadog. Datadog is very advanced when it comes to analytics of application data and then security. Right, it's able to tell you the resource consumption, to tell you easiest or traffic that are coming to your application and how to manage them, and gives you insight into some of the components in your application, how they are doing. Okay. We have Nagios and Splunk that are also good for monitoring and then log visualization. You can visualize your log and see how many errors you have collected from your application, and categorize them and all that. So basically, this is the life cycle of DevOps. You go through this cycle, you plan, you code, you build, you test, you release, you deploy, you operate, you monitor, and in the back, you plan again, you code. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on. It doesn't stop. Yeah. So here are some of the tools that I mentioned earlier that you can use for version control, GitHub and GitLab. For CI/CD, we have Jenkins and GitHub Actions. Configuration, Ansible, we have Chef and Puppet. Then containerization, we're going to the approach. You can use Docker and Kubernetes or ECS and Azure Container Services. So now let's talk about the benefit of DevOps. What benefit does it bring? All right. Look at one of the benefits is faster delivery. In a matter of minutes, you're able to realize that there's a bug in your code in production or in your QA environment, and you're able to notify the respective team, and then they're able to look at the error, open their code editors, go to the code, fix the bug, push it. Once they just push it to a particular branch, it triggers a build, and the application is being built, tested again, deployed. And that just happened within, let it take a whole day. This is a matter of minutes for that to be done. Right? So delivery becomes very faster, right? Improve collaboration. When I did a tool like Datadog like this, you can create alerts, you can create teams, create alerts such that whenever there's an error or there's a bug in the code that's being reported, the team is being notified in real time, and then they're able to pick it and work on it. And when that it's this fixed to they get notified that this has been resolved, right? And we will talk about reliability or higher availability. When you adapt DevOps, you see that you make sure that all your resources are being automated, all your resources are being provisioned uh, in uh, multiple availability zones, or your orchestration is being done very well, so that you don't get any downtime. You have different deployment strategies that you can adopt that make sure that your application never goes down, even if you have to make new releases. Let's say you have a one application, you want to you want to release version 2 in the market. How do you make sure that there's no downtime, right? There are strategies that are available that you can use to handle that, and then you reduce downtime and make sure the system is reliable and available. And then cost reduction, you reduce your cost drastically compared to you having an in-house server, having your own in-house server, managing it, updating it, getting about 4 or 5 administrators to manage it and then be updating it. Where I can just get one DevOps engineer and then the cloud, you can provision and automate all your resources, and that will come at the cost for you. Okay. All right. So, in conclusion, we've seen that DevOps is actually a very good thing, and it can help us to use our resources efficiently, help us to deploy our application faster, and also helps businesses become very dynamic, and because in a sense that you can decide to use AWS today, tomorrow move to Azure based on your needs, right? Or move to Google Cloud Platform based on your needs. So it becomes very flexible for you to decide which platform you want to go with. And if you automate everything, you can easily switch to a cloud provider within a matter of minutes, right? So that's basically the benefit of using DevOps. And you as an individual who wants to use DevOps, there's some of the things you're going to be solving, right? So once you have all these combined skills from something in area networking, administration, and security, you're able to become a very good DevOps engineer. And with your cloud experience, you can provision resources that are very scalable and highly available for your and for a company. Right? So I'll end the presentation here and then make time for questions. If you have any question, um, you can ask now. Uh, if any question about DevOps, or you have started DevOps and you're stuck and you want to understand where to go or how to go about it. So a believer is asking, do we have to learn software development before diving into DevOps? Yes, you have to know how software works before you become a DevOps engineer. And it's mainly to your advantage, right? There are people who just come from, uh, who don't even have any experience, they just want to learn DevOps without having to start. And then they just end up learning Jenkins. And what are they coming to build? You need to, first of all, master, or not even master software engineering, but at least have a fair idea of what software engineering is about. Create some few applications yourself and see what it takes to do that. And then once you're done with your application, you yourself will now think of a way to deploy your application and make sure that the application is running well, you're able to monitor it, able to collect logs, and then provide update it timely when the need be. Okay, so software engineering is very important for DevOps engineers. Right? You can't become a DevOps engineer without having any knowledge about software engineering. Okay, I hope I've answered your question. Okay, that's good. Any question for us? If you have any question, you can go ahead and ask your questions, and I'm here to provide answers for you. So we'll be organizing DevOps bootcamp. The link will be shared. I've created there's a WhatsApp platform that we see in the chat. Um, you can click to join the community on WhatsApp, and then yeah, we are starting a boot camp hopefully early next month, where we take you through software engineering. We introduce software engineering, networking, system administration, then DevOps. So, sorry, and then cloud computing. So you know a little bit about software engineering. You can create your own application, then you can know about cloud, create your own in the cloud, and then how to now provision your application, and then monitor it in the cloud. So that is coming up. And then if you are curious, and you have no experience, or you have experience, you are from a software engineering background, but you don't have any networking background, you can also join. Or maybe you are a software engineer who have knowledge about networking, but you don't have that of cloud engineering. You can also join that camp to learn more about cloud computing and how to leverage that to become very good DevOps. Yeah. And DevOps actually pays well. Okay, once you master DevOps, you become versatile. You can move to any role anytime. You can move to become a software engineer. You can move to become a network. You can move to become a system admin or a cloud engineer, or come back to DevOps. Right. So it's a very broad profession, and then it's very flexible. You can move anywhere you want at any time because you're using all these things daily. So you end up mastering them, right? So kindly join the bootcamp. Uh, Details are in the description for you to join. You can click on the description to check out the link to the community, and then you can join the class. It's not really expensive. It's something cool for that anybody can afford. Once you have these skills at your fingertips, you can start looking for job, and then you get a role, start chopping some big bands. Any other question before we go? You can ask your questions if you have one. Can't see the link. Oh, let me drop the link again for you. I'm going to drop the link to the WhatsApp. So check the chats. So the link is in the chat. You can click on the link in the chat to join the WhatsApp community. Okay. Join the WhatsApp community, and then you get all the updates on the bootcamp that is coming on, where we take you step by step process that you to become a very good developer. So we'll learn like language like Python or Java. Then we'll learn the basics. So if you don't have any experience at all, you can join the bootcamp. We're starting from scratch. You learn software engineering, you go to networking, you go to cloud, then start doing DevOps by pushing your code to GitHub, pushing control, you build it, you test it, you use other tools to deploy it to your targeted environment. And then create more, will help you create more projects so that you have a very good portfolio. And you're creating posts on LinkedIn for people to see what you are learning so far. And then you can get an offer, and with your experience, you start making some money for yourself. Right? If you don't want to do, you can DevOps engineer, but want to expand your knowledge in the IC field, you can also join. You see how software are being developed, how they are being developed for you to use. So something like YouTube, if you see what goes on behind it, you want to know what happens, how you are being able to access YouTube without it going down, or you want to see how the code is being developed, what they go through on daily basis. You can just join the masterclass to learn all those things. You're welcome, William. Any questions before we go? You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can search for Vincent Tetteh on LinkedIn. You can connect there and then chat. You can join the WhatsApp community and then ask any questions that you have about them. Okay. And you can also share the link to other colleagues, anybody you know who needs this, who wants to become a DevOps engineer or a cloud engineer, or someone who really wants to become a network engineer. Just share the link with the person to join the community, and then try the person to join the boot camp. Trust me, this boot camp is going to be taught by myself and some other experts in the field, and you're going to learn a lot. Right? You're going to learn a lot. All right. It looks like we don't have more questions. So what we can do now is to end the live session here. Um, I will see you guys in the community and connect on LinkedIn, and I'll be there to support, ask other. Thank you all for your time and joining this session to learn more about DevOps and what it takes to become one. And I'll create videos like this. So can you subscribe if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet? Can you subscribe to this channel so that if there are new updates, you can receive notifications for you to join. You all should have a good evening.